to learn from each other, to exchange good practices, develop solutions without the need to reinvent the wheel. And so far, between 2014 and 2020, Interreg Europe has invested more than 300 million euros in cooperation projects serving this purpose. And we thought with the policy learning platform, we should build on all, you see the figures on the slide, on all the knowledge and people, actually, the community members we have. You see more than 2,100 good practices, 18,000 members. And therefore, with our team of experts, we make sure that everybody, whether you are involved in projects or not, can benefit from the solutions developed by our community, that projects working on similar or comparable topics, we have nearly 70 projects working on innovation policies, that they do not work in silos, for sure one of the buzzwords for today's discussion. And that we make sure that whenever you have the need or you would like to exchange with like-minded experts, peers from across Europe, you have the possibility whether you are involved in running projects or not. And how are our colleagues doing that? They write publications about good practices, latest policy trends. You see an example published by Marc and Arnault in 2020 on today's topic, university-industry collaboration. We organize events, also very targeted formats. We call them matchmakings and peer reviews, where you put your questions, your challenges on the table, and we look for community members, peers, experts from across Europe who are best suited to discuss the challenges with you. And obviously, as for all of us, the last year has been characterized by new ways of working. We meet online, and of course, in the policy learning platform as well, we are in the process of extending and intensifying our portfolio of online offers. Next slide, Arnaud, very quickly, just before we hand over, 2 words about our peer review service, which indeed allows you to spend 2 days with like-minded peers, colleagues from across Europe to discuss really the challenges and questions you are facing at your doorstep. In the field of innovation, you see 3 examples for the region of Gävleborg in Sweden on innovation governance, for sure one of the hot issues each of you is facing every day. Very close to today's topic, how to manage and sustain centers of competence excellence, and very recently organized as an online peer review on smart port development for the French region of Hauts-de-France. Do not hesitate to contact my colleagues or me if you want to learn more about the peer review service. You see, very easy application form, always open. But before we talk more about the services, Arnaud, let us see which solutions we can share today. I think we have a very interesting program.
Thank you very much, Torsten. So yes, first, let's have a look at the agenda. First, we are going to have like 2 great keynote speakers talking on university industry collaboration policy tools. We are very lucky to have Victoria Galán-Muros with us, also José Guimón. Then we're gonna delve into practice, looking at specific policy initiatives in different regions. So we're gonna have Valeria Pignedoli from Emilia-Romagna and Susana Camara de Cimavilla from Castilla y León. So going to be very interesting with also 2 key discussants. Balzhan Orazbayeva and Liliana Fonseca. And then we're going to move into working groups, so learning from each other, from your good practices and initiatives and what you are doing in your regions. And then at the end, we're going to have online policy help desk, but only for the people who register. So we are going to have one-on-one meeting with some people and participants. But first, as you can see, we have like different breaks, and Raluca Thomas will explain these very innovative new networking opportunities for you.
Yes, so you might all know that normally the thematic workshops happen in real life, in person, and whenever we have a thematic workshop, we try to make people connect to each other and get to know them. So this will not be entirely possible online, but still we wanted to try something with you. So we will propose to you that during the breaks, we have 2 breaks foreseen of 15 minutes each. We will take 10 minutes out of those 15, and we will divide you in groups, in small groups, like 5 people in a group. And we will encourage you to network with each other, basically to introduce yourself, what you are doing, and your interest in the topic that we are discussing today. So this will be an opportunity to get to know other participants in this workshop. And also throughout this workshop, we will try to take as much as possible your questions. So don't hesitate to use the chat to write down whatever questions you might have on the presentations that you will hear, but also beyond that, maybe. And what we will do is that we will screen all the questions that are coming in, and then Arnault will select some of them, and then we will ask you to take the floor, again, say who you are and to explain your question for the audience. So thank you for having joined this e-workshop, and we hope you will enjoy it.
Thank you, Aluka. Please indeed send us your question in the chat, and then we will ask the questions to the keynote speakers and the guest speakers, or we will ask you to ask the question directly. So let's move on to our first session. So we are very happy to have with us Victoria Galán-Muros from the Innovative Futures Institutes, and also José Guimón from the University Autónoma de Madrid. So I will leave you the floor now. Victoria, you're gonna explain a little bit more on soft policy tools for university industry collaboration. So please, Victoria, the floor is yours and you can share your presentation.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Arnault, Torsten, and Raluca, and the rest of the team. It's a pleasure for me to be here today, sharing some thoughts and good practice cases about policy on university business cooperation. I guess you can see my screen now. Yep, okay, perfect. Then very quickly, and sometimes not that easy to introduce myself because I have different hats. Have you said I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Innovative Futures Institute, but I'm also the Policy Affairs Director within the University Industry Innovation Network. Before, I used to work as a policy analyst at the OECD. I used to be also the research director of the Global Institute of Innovation Districts. I used to work in a research center as well, in a science to business research center. I did my PhD on this topic. I'm also an educator. I do teach in different universities, and I've been doing consulting on these topics for almost a decade now, and I just hold some expert and advisory positions anyway. So I do say, and I do feel that I have a 360 degrees view on university business cooperation. I've been pretty much everywhere myself, so that allows me to know and to relate with people on this topic, no matter who they are and where they are. So if we go now to policy, the main issue, and this is before we get to the good practices that we find here, is that what is UBC and who regulates that? So we see that some of UBC policies are really economic policies, while others are education policies, or they are industrial policies, or science, technology, innovation policies. And this is partly good, but the problem that we find here is that usually all these areas are not that aligned. So we find a complexity on the fact that these horizontal alignment that we will need to have effective university business cooperation doesn't often happen. We also have supply side, demand side policies that, again, if we put it together with the others, it just further increase their complexity. But talking about regions today, the regions are affected by the local policies, regional, national, and in the case of Europe, international. We also need that vertical alignment of policies to make the most out of this situation. And again, for reasons that are sort of obvious for everyone and is complex, but it can definitely be improved, we also find a vertical lack of alignment that usually just makes the university business cooperation, it's not as supported as it could be. So that a bit as a context, I guess this is another way to see it, that yes, we're talking about UBC policies, but really we're going to talk about regional, industrial, economic, even labor policies. People need to work in a specific country, social policies. They all, up to a point and in different ways, affect university business cooperation. So today, it was very difficult because we have a short period of time. but I brought really 10 cases or 10 examples of UBC-related policies. Policies that, whether they get UBC directly or in a more indirect way, can have a large impact on that. I bring examples, but really I bring them to make a bit of a broader point on that. So, without further delay, first, I want to talk about innovation agencies, because this is something that I relate with the problem before, that lack of alignment. If there are innovation agencies, they are usually a very good platform to regulate everything in university business cooperation, mostly dealing with research. They might not get to all the more education part, but if we have everything under the same roof, then already the alignment problem is less of a problem. I brought here the National Agency of Sweden. It's a great example, but further or beyond the example I'm bringing here, having these innovation agencies can be very helpful to reduce that barrier that I've just mentioned to start with. The second point, competitiveness clusters or pôle de compétitivité in France, it's also a bit of an excuse to bring the place-based innovation or the place-based university business cooperation. These mean policies that aims to bring together in the same space universities, businesses, and often also intermediaries. Whether the ultimate aim is more innovation or productivity or competitiveness, we can label that in different ways. But at the end of the day, we want these different actors to cooperate, and different governments in Europe with different degrees of success have tried to create place-based innovation and cooperation. The next one, it's about the mobility. So sometimes these actors are not together in the same place, but at the same time, we do know that one of the main barriers, and this comes from a large study that we did for the European Commission, DGAC, on this in a couple of times, actually, the last one in 2018, we actually saw that one of the main problems is about the fact that the personal relationship are not that close, because usually they don't know how the other person, the other organization work, the other person think, so that separation to start with, that causes a lot of issues and delays and misunderstandings, can actually be reduced if there is intersectoral mobility is encouraged. There are different countries that have different policies in order to do this. Sometimes they open it for, sometimes are even the same policies that allows researcher to go to another university or a business. So that's also a possibility. And we've seen, and we've done research on this, that when it doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, the person come back to their own institution with a much better knowledge of how is the other side, how's working in the other organization, and are better to link, are able to link in a much better way. So here's some example of Greece, France, or the United Kingdom that in different ways and with different policies allows this. And now we go to the company side. In the company side, we have probably the most well-known policies that you can have for UBC for businesses, which are tax incentives. So these are policies that are available to be used by businesses. There is always the question of how much is too much of an incentive for business to cooperate. I guess that's something that changes between countries and between regions. So is deducting 20% of the R&D expenses enough for business to be motivated to do it or not? I guess it's not right or wrong on that, and it's probably a survey within the business community will help policymakers understand where that trade-off is. And it seems to be working. It just helps them. And for some, particularly SMEs, that they have less capacity to do this, tax incentives are sometimes enough for them to do so. Not for everyone though, not to get over the top, it's not going to work for every business, but business that were on the bench of whether they were going to do it or not, they might just help to make up their mind. We're still in business, so we can give them tax incentives, but we can also present these other types of policies, which are vouchers. They do also exist in other regions or countries. I bring here the case of Ireland. They use the Innovation Voucher Initiative, and they gave innovation vouchers to business for them to use them to work in collaboration with what they call registered knowledge providers, which are mainly universities or research centers, most of them. And they were only 5,000 euros. You might say that 5,000 euros is not quite big, and it's not. But sometimes those 5,000 euros to explore a small topic were enough to bring these people together on the same table, to get them to know each other. And in this way, they could further collaborate. You know, is this fair? Is this seed capital, if you want to see, for that relationship to start? And now we go to those people in the middle. So those called the intermediaries or knowledge transfer professionals. It became obvious years ago that the people that are currently in the knowledge transfer offices, for example, of universities or external regional development offices, they are people that do a lot of learning by doing. They come from different backgrounds. They have a very difficult job, but there is not that much training for them. So already in 2012, I was participating in a project funded by the German government for a pilot of a course for these type of intermediaries. Then we also replicate that in some places in Latin America. Currently, the Commission is funding another of these programs, because if we think about other professionals, they all have a background on that topic. But currently, these people, they might be lawyers, they might be biologists, they might be, but if we can accelerate that in any way, that would be just gladly appreciated. Industrial PhD programs. If we want to start bringing them together, what's better than to bring highly qualified people already in their PhD stage into business? Because no matter if they stay in business after that and make business more innovative, but because they have a PhD, they can better relate with universities, or they come back to university, but they've done their PhD in business. This is sort of the mobility that we were talking to. If they do it already on their PhD stage, these guys are going to be great boundary spanning professionals, no matter what they do at the end. And I'm bringing here the case of Denmark just because they were the ones that did it first, already in the 70s. And even when they exist in many other regions and countries currently, they were the pioneer. And if we have to recognize anyone, let's give this one to the Danes. Another example that I wanted to bring to the table is that we've always complained that academics or researchers do not collaborate enough with businesses because it's not in their incentive system. It's like, okay, if you're only going to be evaluated for the amount of papers that you write, then we're asking you something else that just might go against that in a way. Well, I'm Spanish, and Spain, it's not a great example over all of this, but I have to recognize that they actually did something very good in 2018 to solve this problem, and they allow academics to apply for every 6 years. They need to send to the national office everything that they've done in terms of research and in terms of teaching. Then they are evaluated, and then that helps them for promotion. They open a third, you could say a third way to do that, and it because of these transfer activities. So in that way, they know that doing transfer activities are not going to take them away from their promotion or their recognition, the official one. So this is something that if we want it to happen, what's better than start recognizing it officially as a way of promotion for academics. And I think this is one of the last ones. It's related to the participation in the university governance. There are also countries that have actually forced, in a way, the participation of industry or external representatives more generally in university councils. This is the case of Spain with the social councils, but also in Greece, this exists. Actually, there is a majority of people from outside the university. So that means that university is better informed, that they know what is happening in industry, that they already have some contact point, and at that level, these people can get feedback about the strategies of the university. And the last one that is not UBC related, but I cannot just insist enough on the importance of skills, any lifelong learning strategy. It's essential for any region or any country. Here again, the example of Estonia is because it was a successful one. It actually finished last year. And we are at a time in which both people in academia, but also people in business need to update, upskilling and reskilling. We're talking about this every day. So we would ideally try to get universities as part of those organizations that upskills and reskill, because it seems that these days it's not just about universities. We also have Google in play, we have IBM in play, and universities can have a very important role in lifelong learning, in just upskilling and reskilling people in business. But they need to probably start reacting maybe a bit more towards that. And this is a bonus. And it's about skill. Canada, I go right out of Europe right now for a second, just to tell you about the Future Skills Center of Canada. This is a center that was constituted last year, even when it's been probably operating for a couple of years, is government funded. It's based physically at a university, but they also have some non-for-profit organizations at partners, and at the consortium partners. But then they have over 200 partners in all across Canada. They partner with chambers of commerce, they partner with businesses, they partner with the rest of the universities. They do research on skills, but it's already a skill in which they bring together universities and businesses. So those skills are already aligned. They are sitting together on the table when they're talking about skills, not skills today, but skills for the future. They also have an advisory board of representatives of the quadruple helix. And they just aim at the end of the day to help Canadians to gain the skills that they need in a changing labor market, starting with already within the university, even vocational education and training centers as well. So I think this gives a completely transversal view on skills that already bring together universities, businesses, intermediaries, and VET. Super quick 10 takeaways. UBC is a people's game. So it's not technologies, it's not transactions, it's people. For your UBC decision-making, trust research, whether this is something that you do yourself because you want to do a diagnostics, or it's research that is already public. Super important to coordinate to ensure an alignment of policies, whether this is an horizontal or a vertical way. And we've seen a lot of written policies that looks very nicely, but they do not always correspond to an implementation of them, meaning they're very high level paper policies committed to this topic, but they're not usually followed by a lot of programs who actually dedicate enough resources to do that. I have to say this, it's sometimes it's too much. It's too many papers, it's too many forms, it's too long, and particularly business, they don't have the patience to do this. So this really puts off everyone, but particularly business. And talking about business, it would be nice to focus on SMEs, because they are the ones that have it the hardest to have this cooperation. There are already some policies that are focusing on SMEs. I think we need more, and we need to be adapted, because if we do them general, then only big business will often are the ones that benefit from them. Skills. We need to future-proof everyone and doing it together. exchange good practices. What's better than people already being here today and a platform like yours for them to do that? And if we want to use that for a sustainable innovation. And last, I really would like to encourage everyone to aim big, to be brave enough to tackle the big, complex, bold challenges of your region. And now I have finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoria. That was great examples, and it was great to move around in the world. I've seen so many flags, so that was really interesting. So thank you very much, Victoria. If you have any questions to Victoria, please use the chat. Now we are going to move with José Guimón. So please, José, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. And all right, well, Victoria has already provided a really insightful presentation of the different policy options available out there with good international examples. I will try to complement those views. Well, as you can see here, I am an associate professor of economics at the Autonomous University of Madrid in Spain also. But I have also been working recently for the OECD as a consultant and over the last couple of years, and we have produced these reports where we analyze the different policy options available and provide a classification also of different financial, regulatory, and soft policy instruments that can be used to promote university industry cooperation. So much of what I will say is based on this work. Basically, we developed a mapping of the different policy instruments with financial, regulatory, and soft policy instruments. So, well, a first idea is that these policy instruments can target different players. They can focus more on the university side or more on the business side. For example, typical financial instruments targeting firms are, as Victoria explained, R&D tax and incentives. Perhaps it's worth clarifying that some countries have very general tax incentives, but others, the kind of expenses that can be used for this incentive are only work subcontracted to universities. So not internal R&D, but also with a focus on subcontracting, which is even more aligned with fostering university industry cooperation. An example is France, but also a regional example would be the Basque country in Spain. Other examples are financial supports to hire doctoral students, the industrial PhD program, also postdocs, which Victoria already mentioned that it's becoming increasingly popular instrument because the mobility of human capital has proved to be one of the most efficient channels. Persons act as a bridge between universities and business when they move. Another example targeting companies are innovation vouchers, also mentioned by Victoria, with normally tend to target SMEs, or they are particularly useful for SMEs. Then there are other policy instruments targeting the university side, such as grants for spin-offs initiated by university researchers or students, financial support for registering patents, etc. And then some policy instruments target both sides simultaneously, such as grants for collaborative R&D. So these are grants to R&D projects that are developed by a consortia of firms and universities. This is actually the most important policy instrument across all European countries in terms of budget. Most parts of the budget for R&D go to collaborative R&D projects, not less of the policy instruments from the European Union. The same holds for regulatory instruments that you can see in the right side, and the most typical are the intellectual property rights regime. So what percentage of the income generated from patent licensing goes to the researcher or to the institution. This sets the incentives. Or regulations regarding spin-offs. Are university professors allowed to create a spin-off and to earn income from the spin-off or not? It's not always easy for a professor to create a company. And others. I do not have time to go into the full details. Then the third group are soft policy instruments, which are not giving money, nor not setting regulations, but rather trying to raise awareness, to build networks, voluntary guidelines, etc. So I explained earlier how different policies can target different sides of the link. They can target companies or universities. The important thing is to have a balanced policy mix that provides incentives to both sides and to different kinds of companies, SMEs, large companies. But then it also needs to be balanced because university-industry relations are very, very complex, and they may unfold through many different mechanisms, many different modes of knowledge transfer. So the policy mix should look into these different modes of cooperation and try to provide support to all of them, or maybe to focus on those that are more important to a given territory or that are underdeveloped. So here you see, for example, there are more unidirectional types of relations where knowledge flows from universities to industry. And here you can promote these, for example, with grants for academic spin-offs, proof of concept, IP, etc. Or on the industry side, tax incentives, as I mentioned. But then you want to also promote more intense collaborations where both parties contribute jointly to the development work. And perhaps the more intense kind of cooperation would be to create joint labs, joint laboratories with co-funding from industry and academia, often also with co-funding from the government that turns to become a partner in these new structures rather than just providing funding. And this is becoming also increasingly popular. It's linked with recent policy developments involving mission-oriented policies implemented by dynamic public-private partnerships, where the government adopts a more active role and often in collaboration with other civil society stakeholders. These are some examples of these kinds of public-private partnership in different countries, in the United States, in Ireland, Portugal, the collaborative laboratories, or in Sweden, this program managed by Vinnova, which Victoria already highlighted, the strategic innovation programs. This is a more detailed analysis of different programs to establish more intense modes of collaboration between universities and business, with more ambitious collaborations with very high level of public funding over a long period of time, and often funding a limited number of research centers, like only 9 in Germany, but very clearly aligned with national strategic priorities and with smart specialization strategies. So another example that I would like to highlight, another recent trend is associated with the performance-based funding systems of universities. The funding that universities received from the state increasingly is not only baseline funding based on the number of students, but also based on some performance measures, which typically had a focus on research outputs, but increasingly some countries are introducing measures of socioeconomic impact, transfer, and industry relations. And perhaps the most well-known example is the Research Excellence Framework in the United Kingdom, which is conducted every 5-6 years. And it measures the socio-economic impact of research, not only the scientific excellence, but also impact. And this part of the impact is evaluated based on a qualitative analysis of case studies. And this represents 20% of the final score, and this determines the funding that later universities receive from the government. In Spain, we also have some examples at the regional level, such as the CERCA network in Catalonia, which also evaluates research centers every 4 years, and the centers are asked to provide a description of their 5 most impactful projects. So it's, again, to measure impact, to measure knowledge transfer, you need to look more at qualitative measures, not only quantitative indicators. In fact, it's sometimes risky to try to measure it with just quantitative indicators, such as number of patents, number of spin-offs, because then you end up having many spin-offs, but none of them have a real impact, or many patents, and how many of them are really licensed. So it needs to be carefully considered. I will skip this one I will conclude the presentation by emphasizing again the importance of adopting a policy mix approach, considering how different policy instruments complement and interact with one another, rather than just looking at policy instruments in isolation. This is important at the design stage of policy instruments, at the implementation stage, and also when one wants to evaluate the impact of a specific policy. And here, again, as Victoria also explained, it is critical to consider the interaction between different levels of governance. Because here we are in front of an audience mainly of regional policymakers, but then regions, when they need to decide what policy instruments to use, they of course need to think how to fit into a broader multi-level governance setting, and how to complement what the national policies are doing, what European policies are doing, trying to complement each other rather than building more overlap, adding complexity, and building more confusion to target firms and universities. So it's worth thinking about what the division of labor is within a given territory. Sometimes, for example, tax incentives are decided at national level, but then regions may have the possibility to complement those tax incentives with an incremental incentive, maybe targeting collaborative relations, and this is what the Basque Country has done. On the other hand, innovation vouchers, for example, typically are provided more at regional level rather than at national level. It depends a lot on the country, of course, but so sometimes the division of labor has to do with the quantity of the grant. For example, in Spain, the tacit rule is that grants of more than 200,000 euro are provided at national level, but less than 200,000 euro by regional governments, and innovation vouchers by regional governments, and the national level does not intervene there. So, and then another idea is that, okay, we have this policy mix, and sometimes maybe 2 or 3 policy instruments are combined within a broader strategy. So there is a specific strategy launched by a regional government that combines 2, 3, or 4 policy instruments. I think we will hear an example later of the Castilla y León with the university business knowledge transfer plan. So, okay, I think I reached my time, so thank you very much for your attention, and I will conclude here.
Thank you, both Jose and Victoria. I'm making the most of my internet connection, so apologies for the poor picture, but doesn't really add anything to what I'm going to say. I think one of the key questions I would like to put to you before checking on the chat is, a number of different initiatives are possible. And both of you have spoken about alignment, making sure we have complementary and synergy approaches. If I was to ask you both the question, what would you prioritize in terms of policy deployment, in terms of the policy mix in a region that has historically low or poor university industry collaboration? So what would be the first two things you would implement in a region that has all the indicators that are in the sort of red zone? Victoria, you first perhaps.
Yeah, I think we lost Victoria. Our connection was not so good. So Jose.
Okay, I can go first then. So I think in those circumstances, the first priority would be to focus on what I described as soft instruments. So the first priority for policymakers should be to map existing research groups that may have potential to link with companies, and also to map those companies that may be more interested in collaboration. And this requires organizing networking events, matchmaking services, facilitating first contacts through seminars, also setting up foresight or expert groups around specific sectors or technologies, deliberately bringing together key actors from the business and from the university side. So policymakers here need to adopt a more active facilitation role to create new spaces for cooperation, because policymakers in more dynamic innovation system, they can just lay back and offer some large grants, and they know that there will be an interest and companies will follow and universities will follow, but otherwise it's difficult. And then the second one will be to watch carefully SMEs and look at how universities can help SMEs diagnose their technology needs, possibly through innovation vouchers that have been discussed already.
Okay, well, I think that's a very concrete response. Thanks, Jose, because I think even I could understand. So that's no bad thing. I don't know if Victoria's managed to reconnect. I can see just a round dot on my screen, so probably not. I'll make the most of Jose then. The other dimension that is particularly interesting to our audience today is that many of them are involved in Interreg Europe projects, where there's a sort of a interregional dimension. Do you see the interregional dimension, Jose, as having any particular benefits to accelerate the university business cooperation, or should regions really focus on their own capacity rather than seek to do the holy grail of industry university collaboration by looking at what interregional cooperation could bring to their particular policy mix?
No, I think that interregional cooperation is very important, because we have many success stories and good practices at regional level remain below the radar, because we seem to be focusing too often on national policies. If you look at the OECD, their role is to spread out good practices, but mainly at the national level. Here you are playing a very important role in spreading out the word of regional good practices, but many of those experiences remain, as I said, under the radar, and there's a lot of experimentation going on in regions, particularly in more decentralized countries such as Spain, where regions have been the ones promoting different models of technology centers, science parks, TTOs, also networks of TTOs at regional level. So I agree completely on the need to foster inter-regional collaboration. Even regions within a single country often do not share experiences, and I'm thinking of the case of Spain in particular.
Yeah, Marc, I think we had a question from the chat as well.
Okay, let's have a look.
Yeah. So let me ask directly the question to Jose. So you mentioned the role of private companies in governance, the importance to have like private companies as well being involved, SMEs and so on. But how to ensure that public research will not be captured by private interests? And you have 2 minutes before concluding.
That's not an easy question, but okay, I think this should not be I do not see a danger. I mean, we at universities are not easily influenced by companies, and there is always a good share of university professors and researchers that are more interested in advancing basic research. So I think the risk is rather the opposite, that we decide to stay in our little offices and our academic conferences without connecting to companies. So I think more of the value of public research needs to be captured by companies, and that's something positive that we all should strive for.
Thank you, Jose. We have Victoria is back. Welcome back, Victoria. So short key takeaways from you.
Takeaways from what? From my presentation?
For your presentation, and yes, please.
I believe I already include them in the presentation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If I had to say one thing, just focus on people, focus on relationship, create that atmosphere of collaboration and trust. Because really, without that, no matter which other policies we make, how much we focus on technology and transactions, that things are not quite going to happen. So it's a people's game.
Thank you, Victoria.
If I've got one more question to Victoria, then on that.
1 minute.
Very quick. Are there any sectors in which the collaboration works better, quicker? If you have to choose between agri-food, photonics, health, where would you launch your technology transfer sector initiatives, Victoria?
Well, it is obvious that there are sectors that are quicker. That's any ICT related sector. It's just quicker. They just move quicker. But I wouldn't say that that's a good enough reason to just focus on them. Even more, I say, because they sort of can't take care of themselves. If we have to focus on someone, let's focus on those more traditional sectors that people might not see as collaborative or innovative. There is an excellent case in the UK with Dairy Crest, which is a dairy company, and Harper's Adam University, an agricultural university. They're doing wonderful things together. And if we think about an innovative company, we might not think about a dairy company, but yes, they do innovate or can innovate or have the potential to innovate, and they can do it together with universities, even though it might not be that quick.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Arnault, I think that was maybe 1 minute and 10 seconds, so we're on track.
That was great. We're on track, so let's conclude. Would like to thank you very much, Jose and Victoria, for being here. That was super interesting. I encourage everyone to read the OECD report on university industry collaboration. It was really, really helpful for writing our policy brief as well. Now we're moving to the networking opportunities. So you will have 10 minutes to introduce each other. So please turn on your cameras and introduce each other in the specific meeting rooms. And see you in 15 minutes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Everyone joining again, so welcome back. So welcome to this. I can hear some noise, so if you can turn off your mic when you're done speaking, that would be great. Thank you. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice short break in the breaking rooms. Now we're moving to our next session on university industry collaboration, looking at good practices in Europe. So we have two presentations. The first one is going to be Valeria Pignedoli from Emilia-Romagna presenting the Mr. Lab, and then we are going to have Susana Camara-Decima-Vidia from the Knowledge Transfer Office in Castilla y León in Spain. So please again turn off your mic when you're not speaking, and then we will have like some key discussant with us today to reflect on the good practices. Thinking about what they've been looking at from their experience and so on. We're very lucky to have Balzhan Orazbayeva with us from the University Industry Network, Innovation Network, and Liliana Fonseca, researcher at the European Policies Research Center. But with no further ado, let's have Valeria presentation. So Valeria, please, the floor is yours and you have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Arnault. I'm trying to share my screen. Is okay?
It's good, we can see your screen. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Valeria Pignedoli, and I'm the General Manager of Mr. Smart Innovation and the Manager of the CNR Technopole in Bologna. I'd like my colleague Filippo Saguatti to introduce our presentation. Filippo, are you there?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Valeria. Thanks. I would like to thank, first of all, very much Marc, Arnault, and all the others at Interreg Europe for inviting us to present our project and our good practice. And good morning to everyone. I'm a project manager at Arter. Let me introduce myself briefly, which is the agency which works on behalf of Emilia-Romagna regional government in Italy to foster technology transfer, innovation, industrial research, territorial cooperation and development, and many other things. We presented in the second call of Interreg Europe this project, which is called InnoInfraShare, which stands for Sharing Strategies for European Research and Innovation Infrastructures. And it closed just yesterday with the approval of our final report. So, hooray, we are very happy and a little bit sad of ending this good collaboration. The goal of our project was, as you can see, was to support research innovation infrastructures on the one hand, and SMEs on the other to collaborate, and in particular to help the infrastructures to give access to SMEs not only at local level in the participating regions, but also at global level, at European level, with an exchange between the regions. My partners came from Netherlands, and they were Brainport Development. In Belgium, we had Flanders Make. We had in Latvia, Vidzemba Planning Region. In Estonia, Tartu City Government. In the Czech Republic, we had Brno University. And in Germany, we had Chemnitz University. And in Sweden, Skåne region. I made a little bit a typo in preparing this presentation. I overestimated the number of GPs. Actually, we presented 20 good practices, but 18 were validated by Interreg Europe. And the good practices were focusing on the services for the small and medium enterprises and on the business model for them accessing the infrastructure, the innovation infrastructures. Some good practices were focusing on marketing activities and in general the exploitation of the interregional international potential. I think my minute is over, so I leave the floor to Valeria to present our good practice. The floor is yours, Valeria.
Thank you, Filippo. So, Mr. Smart Innovation, that's our company. We were founded in 2009, and we are a private research organization, a non-profit organization that I think represents a virtuous example of PPP, public-private partnership. In fact, we have different shareholders. CNR, the National Research Council, the most important research center, is in Italy, is our main shareholder. But we have also two universities, Universities of Ferrara and University of Parma. They are both in Emilia-Romagna region. And we have several and different companies operating in various manufacturing sectors. We have 13 shareholders, and the companies are really very different. We have startups, SMEs, but also large enterprises. Which is our mission? Our mission is to foster university-industry collaboration and developing technological innovation, namely in promoting the so-called key enabling technologies in regional as 3 priorities. So our role is to cover the gap between research and company. And a private tool, as the hour is, we think is one of the best way to do this job. In fact, MR operates in the floating area between TRL 3.4 and TRL 7.8 in order to cover this gap, which are our main sectors: Industry 4.0, health tech, smart materials, and our turnover, that is 1,200,000 euros per year, comes from public funded projects for 60% and private contracts with companies more or less for 40%. Which are our services, you said? Technology transfer, professional education, and dissemination too. As technology transfer, we offer collaboration through private R&D contracts and technology transfer partnership in regional, national, and also European projects. But we think that information is a pillar for our mission. And so we design and deliver professional education path for companies, and also direct training for young people, such as internships or doctorate experience in our company and in the Technopole. Dissemination, we work hardly close with institutional and private partners. We design modern formats to light up the innovation debate and pushing limits of scientific dissemination. I can give you some numbers. We develop almost 20 projects on strategic industrial research, co-funded in the last 5 years. More than 130 projects on technology transfer with private companies in the last 10 years. More than 800 contacts, that is delegations, visitors, stakeholders, students in the last 3 years. And we support with different activities more than 30 startups in the last 3 years. Go on. Okay, this is our Technopole. Because MR, since 2017, has been in charge of the management activities in the Technopole, so-called Technopolo Bologna CNR. In Emilia-Romagna, we have 10 Technopoles, but my Technopole is quite particular because the main reference is only the CNR. So we develop a model that is based on research and on the synergy and connection between research, innovation, and companies. The Technopole is located in the heart of the CNR research area in Bologna, but also on Parma University campus. And we provide almost 6,000 square meters dedicated to facilities, research infrastructures, and scientific equipments. 2 consortia, one is MISTER that I represent, and the other one is ProAmbiente, and they develop technologies about the green tech, green and energy fields. We have also a building, you can see it in my presentation, and it's called accelerators, because it's not really an incubator, because we host companies, not only startups, even SMEs or large companies. They are inside on campus, and they can develop projects with us, with the 2 consortia, but also with the CNR institutes in the area. And we provide also services at Technopole for dissemination, demonstration, and information activities. Okay, so our recommendation. We think that innovation has really a significant direct impact on our economy. And so our mission is to turn knowledge into value. MISTER, so as I told you, is a research-centered innovation model, and we are based on focused value proposition and strategic trajectories. The transferability potential lies in the PPP model, that is the connection between public and private actors, in the openness of their platform, and also in the provision of a multi-cat platform model. We develop a model that is now, we think, engineered for multi-localization, and it is scalable. Another number I can give you, we started 10 years ago with 100,000 euros share capital, and now we have 1 million share capital. So we think we can consider that our is a good example in transferring research into companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valeria. Thank you very much also to Filippo. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your good practices. Please, again, use the chat if you have any questions. We're going to move directly to Susanna before the plenary discussion. So please, Susanna, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes as well.
Okay. The presentation, I had a problem to access to it, so I think Raluca is going to...
I think, Lars, you need to, yes.
To do it for me?
Yes, I am now putting on the presentation. Just 1 second, please.
Okay. Hello to everyone. Thanks for inviting me to give this presentation. My name is Susana Cámara. I am the director of the Knowledge Transfer Office at the University of Burgos, and I'm going to explain the program that the University of Burgos take part on. That is the program called TQE. Next, please. Now I think.
Yeah, shall I?
Yes.
Just this good practice is a part of the PIRIS project. PIRIS, the full name of the project is Policies to Improve Rural Areas Innovation Systems by Professionalizing Networking Activities and Use of Innovation Tools. And that is the full name explains what we are doing. We are concentrating our focus both on the internal part, the network management, and also on access to outside support. But it's about innovation networks, and the core is to build structures for sharing knowledge in order to boost innovation. And I'm not sure if you now can see the presentation, but in the presentation you will also see who are the partners. So I will leave the digital floor to you, Susanna, to tell more about the good practice.
Yes, sorry, just one intervention, more technically speaking, for the time being. So no, people are not seeing now the presentation, because I just wanted to see with Susanna, we hear you double, we hear you with an echo. So can you just talk a little bit, make sure that your headphones are rightfully plugged?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, but there is an echo. Can you?
There's an echo.
Yeah, can you maybe unplug and put again your headphones?
Yes. Hello. Now?
Yes. Can you try again?
Hello.
Yes,
Can you
I
hear
think.
me?
Yeah, I think that should work better. Okay, so now I will put on your presentation again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, please. Okay. Okay. In 2008, the regional government here in Castilla y León launched the regional university business strategy to improve the cooperation between business and university. Burgos is a city that belongs to Castilla y León, to the region of Castilla y León. Inside this strategy, we can find the program TQE, that is the acronym of University Business Knowledge Transfers Program. All universities in the region of Castilla y León take part into the program, including private and public universities. Next, please. The program is divided in 4 major actions. Innovative university. This concentrates the main activities focused on organizing and strengthening the structure of to support the transfer of university knowledge, promoting development, protection, and exploitation of technologies from the university, and also recognizing the effort of the researchers in this field. Other important action is the business university projects. In this part, we foster the development of joint research, development, and innovation projects and the open innovation. There is also an important area, which is the entrepreneurial university, where we aim to the aim is to promote entrepreneurship and encouraging creation of spin-off and startups based on technology. And the fourth is the innovative ecosystem to foster an environment for this type of activities in the region. Next, please. Okay. Before I start to explain you a little bit some of the actions that we develop in the program, I want to explain that the main objectives that we have with the Plan TQE is to strengthen links between university and business by promoting an innovative culture at the university. We want to incorporate knowledge as an asset of the regional economy. This has 3 different main areas with different objectives that overlaps that are the following: innovation collaborative projects between academic and business world, registration and commercialization of university research, like patents, licenses, registrations, and exploitation of research results through the creation of a new business. Some of the results that I would like to highlight is that TQE has strongly supported the knowledge transfer office in universities in Castilla y León. Thanks to the program TQE, most of the knowledge transfer office can have a stable staff, which would have never been able without this program, especially during the economical crisis. The office are composed by staff highly formed and trained that daily achieve a high level of expertise and specialization. And also it's important to mention the network that is established between all the KTOs from the different universities in the region. All the people that we work in this in the innovation field, we know that there are a lot of difficulties. Some of them are, for instance, the economic crisis. Other difficulties that we face every day are the different objectives, different languages, and different timetables that are in the university and in the companies. Also, the difficulty also in incentivate to the researchers, because we know that the university is guided by publications and not always in the results that can be transferred to the productive sectors. Also, we know that university are complex structures that sometimes also makes difficult to mobilize some actions. These are some problems and challenges that we have to face, but with this program, we are trying to get better results. Then and now I'm going to explain very briefly some of the activities, global activities that we carry on all the universities together in the frame of the program TQE. One of them is the challenge contest called Desafío. This is a contest where all universities participate, and we try to match the demands and the needs from the company in order to give a response from the universities, from the research groups. So the companies, what they do is to send their needs to a platform that publish all the needs. Afterwards, the researchers can visualize these needs, and they apply to give a response to these needs. And after all this, the match are evaluated, and a jury select the best ones, given different prizes. There is 3 best research and development projects, 3 prizes for the 3 first research and development projects, another prize for a new entrepreneurs, and another one for an thesis for association of public interest. The global amount comes to 45,000 euros. But apart from that, the universities also, afterwards, we launch another call where we try to catch all these solutions that universities can or have sent to the the companies that didn't receive a prize. So this is not this is not the last. This is the first step, because we can continue to give more response apart from this contest. The experience from this contest is very good. This year we have launched the 7th edition, and we are very happy with the results we are getting from this action, and we hope to have it for many years. Next one, please. Another action that we also have launched for already a few years as well is the Entrepreneurial Campus contest. In this case, the target groups are university researchers, students and former students, and also administrative staff and research fellows from the universities of Castilla y León. There are 2 different categories to participate. The people interested can participate sending a business idea or a business project. And there is a methodology to evaluate the proposals presented. First, there is a regional jury, and after it goes, a university jury, and after goes to a regional jury. In this case, we have. Can you go to the next, please? No, this was not the one. Well, sorry. In this case, I have to say that 3 best ideas are received an award, and also one business project. The ideas receive some tutorials, a tutorial program to evaluate the potential and the viability of the idea, and the business project also receive an amount of money that is linked to the open of the business. Another action that also works very well, and in this case is more oriented to students, is the market-oriented prototypes program. In this case, the target groups are students, researchers, including teachers, but most of the people who participate are students in our case, and I think in the rest of the universities is the same. The students have several months to develop the prototypes. In this case, what we aim is that the last year projects that the students have to develop, we aimed that these projects have an orientated application to the market, and we give them a kind of incentive to do this kind of projects that can be later be transferred to the society, to the companies. We give them support, training in industrial or intellectual property rights, and also we give them training in the entrepreneurship area. We try to foster the creation of startups by this kind of action. I
Susanna,
this is
two more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Ah, okay. No, I was saying that this is all what I'm going to say. Yes. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susanna. Right on time. That's excellent. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Lars, also for being here and introducing us to P-Iris. And thanks again to Valeria and Filippo as well. So now we are very lucky because we have two very good discussants with us to reflect on your good practices and to reflect from their experience and what they've been looking at. So we have first Balzhan. So Balzhan, you work at the University Industry Innovation Network, and I'm sure you see a lot of good practices from not only Europe but also from around the world. So I will ask you. So what do you think? What's your key takeaways on those two good practices that you just saw, and what for you key takeaways on what works, what doesn't work in general for university industry collaboration? And Susanna, I'm going to ask you to turn off your mic because we can hear like an echo. Yeah, cool. Thanks. Well, excellent.
Yeah, thank you very much, Arnault, for inviting. And first of all, I wanted to say congratulations, Filippo and Valeria, on concluding the project. I can understand that it might as well be a little bit sad, especially after this amazing work that you have done. And Susanna and Lars, also thank you for your presentation. What I really wanted to start with here is by saying that I think these two different examples actually illustrate two ways on how the collaboration can be undertaken. Whereas first example presented by Valeria and Filippo is really focusing on, I guess, rather research component and really focusing on engagement with SMEs, which we all know is very tricky bit because we always like to blame SMEs for not being, you know, very collaborative because they don't have all the resources that they need. But, you know, I think this project, this example illustrates that if you are providing the right resources and capabilities and actually help SMEs to develop those capabilities for collaboration, everything is possible. So I really wanted to emphasize that aspect that, you know, you are not only focusing on this one directional knowledge transfer and commercialization, but also provide the educational possibilities for those SMEs. Because I think in the end of the day, university business collaboration is in fact about people. And if we're not sort of caring for, you know, providing them with the right knowledge and with the right resources, we cannot also expect small and medium-sized enterprises to jump right into the collaboration. So I think it's a great illustration of how SMEs can be involved in a bigger ecosystem in collaboration with universities, whilst also providing universities with these additional opportunities to collaborate with their local environment. So this is what I wanted to first start with, talking about the first case. And when it comes to the second case, Susanna and Lars, I think, again, especially what's the actions that Susanna was presenting, I think it also illustrates on how university can really be positioned in the center of the ecosystem when it comes to collaboration, because university business collaboration is not only about, you know, research commercialization and knowledge transfer. It can also be about entrepreneurship. It is also about students and helping to increase their employability. And I think these actions that you have described in terms of, you know, organizing all this competition and contents to incentivize academics to turn their research into value and potentially even create startups and spin-offs, but also by drawing great examples for students to provide them with all these exciting pathways on how they can become more employable actually on their own by creating their own companies. So this is what I thought was main distinction between the two cases, but at the same time, the two practices also illustrate on how, you know, in the regions, there is a need for more spanning boundaries agents, if you will, organizations like yours who are actually providing all this networking and possibilities in terms of providing the capabilities, but also raising those capabilities both amongst SMEs, but also helping those universities. But of course, I couldn't agree more with what had been said, that it is very hard to incentivize researchers who are all about publications and who are all about making sure that the teaching is delivered, especially these days with coronavirus, when everything basically is operating in a completely different pace. I think we're getting used to it, in fact, and the universities did a fantastic job. But I couldn't agree more that if we really want to make universities be more open and at the same time also have SMEs or companies on the other side be active as well, it is important to first focus on people and really make this work in terms of cultural development. So this is why I couldn't agree more with Susanna when she said that, you know, developing culture is definitely a big barrier, but I think it's possible by starting with small steps and introducing the smaller interventions and actions, by addressing researchers specifically and by addressing students specifically, and in the case of Valeria and Filippo, by also raising capabilities of SMEs in terms of professional development.
Thank you, Balzhan. That was very sharp takeaways, so thank you for that. Now we have Liliana. So Liliana, she's a researcher, so she can also address your points that you raise, Balzhan. So Liliana, you worked a lot, doing a lot of research on the entrepreneurial university, aligning university with smart specialization strategy, looking at the third mission of universities. So what's your key takeaways of the good practices and reflecting from how it relates to the third mission that you've been working on?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Arnault, and thank you for the invitation to discuss this topic today. And in fact, we have here two very interesting models and approaches to this collaboration, right, between research and between companies and private organizations. I would say that in terms, I would have 3 points that I would like to highlight, I would say. In terms of the third mission, of course, I think throughout this workshop today, we have seen that the third mission actually in universities can emerge in very different ways. It can manifest very differently depending on the regional context, depending on the framework, whether the higher education system in the country, the policy framework, the regulations that are in place. And depending on the institution itself, their entrepreneurial architecture or the leadership that is within these institutions. And I would say also regarding these two examples of best practices that we have today, there are two elements that I've actually seen in my research that also align here. So we see, for example, in Susanna's presentation on the Tikwe, if I can say it like that, we have this mode of imbuing agency, right, within these universities. So trying to kind of establish this entrepreneurial mindset and this entrepreneurial culture. And it is very important, as people have tried to emphasize here today, that it is about the people. It is about trying to kind of stimulate this way of thinking and these collaborations and this trust. So agency is very important within these organizations and within these initiatives. And of course, then again, we have another element, which is kind of alignment, not just alignment within the university, of course, but within these intermediary bodies or organizations that are trying to create these collaborations. So alignment within those institutions, but alignment also between them and the external partners. So in this sense, with Valeria's example, I saw that they tried to align with regional smart specialization priorities. And this is actually something that in my research I've seen that does help trying to match the research with the regional needs and with funding priorities. So this alignment is definitely something important, and that I am glad to see that is being modeled in other cases. So these are a couple of my takeaways, and just congratulations to those good practices, because I'm definitely impressed by them, and I hope to keep up the good work.
Excellent. Thank you, Liliana, for your key 3 main takeaways. I will open up the floor to questions, and I think Marc, you have some questions to our speakers and discussants, right?
Indeed, yeah, thanks. One of the issues we often hear about in terms of the North American success model is the venture capital funding that's available to, let's say, lubricate the process and maybe incentivize beyond the notion of prizes and challenges. So, you know, we hear about the innovation venture capital funds behind the big universities like Harvard, the Silicon Valley, etc. Any of the 4 or 5 you know, participants in this last session can point to any good examples of regional venture capital that sort of operationalizes, you know, if everybody's put in place the successful ingredients that we've heard about, when the startup is launched with the professor, with the SME or whatever, are there any good models of regional venture capital schemes that you could shed light on, any of you?
Okay, I can say one thing about our experience. As I told you, we are a private non-profit company, but we are a company. So we enlarged our partnership, our shareholders last year, and now we have 13, as I told you, shareholders. 3 are public, that is CNR and 2 universities. The other one are private entity. And we have companies, of course, but we enlarged also to 2 different partners. One is a financial partner. So we have inside our shareholders a finance company that can support and help our SMEs, startups, and small entity to grow up and to come in contact with financial instruments. The other one, a new shareholder, is an educational shareholder, because we think that we have to offer to our companies all these services, that is research, education, and finance instruments.
Thanks, Valeria.
I would also like to add, if I may, another example. I think it's actually a very, very good question, because we always, you know, tend to talk about these big universities that always, and very traditional ones, and, you know, that are always high in the rankings. So I think it's somewhat easy to always judge against the other universities by saying that they may not necessarily be as successful as the others. But one of my favorite examples is the University of Twente, that together with Kenny's Park in Twente, this is actually a very small region here in the Netherlands, and they were able to completely revitalize the complete ecosystem in the region, because it traditionally used to be, if I'm not mistaken, a textile region, but now it was completely turned into a very fast-growing, high-tech region here in the Netherlands. And this is a massive collaboration, massive effort that has been undertaken together with the University of Twente, Kenny's Park Twente, and there is also Saxion University of Applied Sciences. But the whole point, I guess, is behind the institutional culture and human resources strategy that they put in the center of this strong regional network. I see Liliana nodding, so I'm sure you know this example also very well, because in fact it is a very good practice example. But what I think is also interesting is that they always have the funds that they put aside for students. There is a special fund, I may have forgotten the name. I think it's called Venture Twente Technology Fund, if I'm not mistaken. So in any case, they always have these resources that they have for entrepreneurial activities of both students as well as academics, and they really try to nurture right from the beginning this entrepreneurial culture amongst both researchers and students. And they also have a couple of arms that they utilize as support structures and support mechanisms to do so. Venture Lab Twente, Design Lab, that basically fosters collaboration and entrepreneurial spirit amongst them all. But to summarize this very quickly, I think it is a great example on how they were able to basically start again from scratch, but it has been not easy, as you can imagine. It is a massive effort and great multi-stakeholder collaboration, in fact, but I definitely recommend to check this out. I'm also happy to drop a link to a case study that we have written on them.
That'd be great, Balzhan. Thanks. Use our chat discussion for putting anything you find useful. Personally, I've got experience of regions in Germany and in the south of France, Région Sud Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, where they use their ERDF budget to co-fund the creation of regional venture capital funds. So the region put up 50% and they used ERDF. They then created a sort of a spin-off organization, and I think all the speakers today have highlighted the role of intermediary and putting the right people into the right place. And in some cases the funds are managed by private equity, private venture capital people, so they buy in the expertise. It's not a job for with all the respect I have for regional authorities, it's not their job to assess the growth and capital burn rate of startups. So buy in that expertise. But certainly, there are good practice examples of venture capital funds at a regional level that have been co-funded by ERDF pots of money. So I think that's it's an area of further work for all of us, because these issues funding never seem to go away.
I would like to say that also here in Castilla y León, we have a regional venture capital from the economy area of the regional government that have given support to the business projects that have come from the universities. So we have also this kind of support from the government.
Yeah, so I think it's an important message. I think when José presented the OECD sort of policy mix, the one key message is not to turn off and turn off the different policy support mechanisms. Continuum is important. When we talk of synergies, you've got to make sure that when a researcher or an SME startup gets to one stage, there is the next stage mapped out for them. Otherwise, we've seen it recently in the COVID crisis. Startups being funded from non-European ecosystems, and the without being political, vaccines going elsewhere. But anyway, that's probably a taboo subject for today's. But I think the continuum of policy support and funding is one of the issues I have as a takeaway from these discussions.
Thank you, Marc. Unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Okay.
We had questions for Valeria. So Valeria, you have 1 minute, 30 seconds to answer. And the question is, what is the mechanisms of return or of reward of the private funds that invest in MR?
No, maybe I wasn't clear. Our shareholder doesn't invest in us. We have partners, different partners, also financial partners, that with us try to support startups in developing their business. We support with a scientific and technical support, but also with financial tools. Okay.
Excellent.
Not for us, but for our companies. That is for startups or SMEs we work with.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Valeria. Thank you, everyone, for this session. So thank you, Susanna, Valeria, Filippo, Lars, Balzhan, and Liliana. That was very, very great session. So thank you all. You have Balzhan link for the case study in Twente in the chat. So please have a look at it. I'm sure it's super interesting. And we move on, we do like, again, like breaking rooms, networking opportunities. So Aluka is going to divide us into smaller groups, and then we see each other in working groups. So see you soon.